Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone who's watching and listening in, and to my brother, coach, ustad of food taqwa, as I like to think of you, who's a health and fitness coach. And we're continuing a discussion that we started, I think first one was still in Ramadan, and the conversations have kind of developed over time. And we stumbled across certain conversations that we thought, you know what, those deserve a revisit and great analysis. And the topic today is Qiwamāh through strength. This is very interesting because a lot of people are interested in what does it mean to have rujula, yeah? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was considered Sayyidur Rijal, the master of men, the sire of men. And we have other words that are thrown around, like muru'ah, which is also linked to manliness. Other words that are linked also, I think, is the word futuwa, which is youthfulness in men, right? The fact that they're active and they're alert, and you should never really get old, right? Even no matter how old you are, you've all probably in your life recognized that there are people who, no matter how old they are, and even if they're ill or something, you'll see that they're still youthful in their mindset, in their behavior. They're not negative. And inshallah, we never grow old and grumpy. That's the hope. I mean, right? But the issue is, it's about trying to be your optimal self as a human being that's been given an amana. Yeah. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-rijalu qawwamun ala nisa, what me and my brother Adam, me and Ustad Adam, we said that Qiwamāh, about being responsible, protector, provision. And obviously, with the responsibility to dispense with the bit that this session isn't really about, but responsibility comes with some authority. But what often happens is that people become a bit transfixed with what they think people owe them as opposed to what they owe. And we believe that as Muslims first, and Muslims that are men, that we also have to focus on not what we expect, but first what we expect of ourselves when we read an ayah. You never read the Quran and go, wow, everyone should be generous to me. Imagine reading an ayah about be generous and you think, wow, people should be giving me, people should be generous to me. That's wrong. We should be imbibing and the characteristic of generosity and karam, in our own character. So when Allah says qawwamun ala nisa, we need to first and foremost start unpacking this qiwamah. So the way just for the audience to understand, if you're in a classroom and you said you're responsible for these kids, but I just want to let the students know something. Oh, dear students, when he gives you detention, when he puts you a new report, you don't have to listen to him. When he gives you homework, you don't have to do it, right? There's no consequence and you don't have to do anything he says. The chances are, Ustad Adam, that classroom is going to be mayhem. It's going to be chaos because that's completely disempowered the teacher. It's not that the teacher's dying to be the leader. It comes with authority, comes with responsibility. And in that vein, what we want to do is we want to focus on the responsibility aspect as opposed to lauding yourself about that's another day, another podcast, and another discussion. And within Qiwamāh, we have execution of provision and execution of protection, right? There's a more wider conversation that informs all of, or that is these verses inform, which is the idea of the maqasid ash-shar'iyya, right? Which are the major things that Islam, hifdhud deen, preservation of the deen. But one of them is hifdhun nafs, which is a very important and I would say neglected maqsad of Islam, right? And hifdhun nafs means in a wider general sense to not allow anyone to be killed, right? To not allow anyone to poison you. But what's the point, Ustad Adam, if we're poisoning ourselves, right? Then hifdhun nafs is stop poisoning yourself. Stop killing yourself with ill health. So hifdhun nafs, people will talk about the right to not be killed or stabbed or to be poisoned. But the truth is that also involves you not poisoning yourself, you not making yourself unnecessarily ill. And clearly that impacts when it comes to being a provider, how you earn. There's a concept in Britain, they call it fit to work. And what we probably want to go into is fit to work a high enough bar for a Muslim, right? Just about to drag yourself in, take all your pills, drink your coffee, go to work, do your robot bit, and leave, and then consider that as that's fit for us. What does that mean? So I'm going to be asking Ustad about fit to work and fit as a Muslim. What's the difference? The second thing is to do with protecting, right? Protecting. How good are you in a scrap, right? How
mm,
good are I used to have discussions with the Christian teacher when those days you wouldn't get, reported. I don't even remember, but teachers were a lot more open in our day than they are now. They're very guarded because they might get. So in the playground, I would be discussing with the teacher about philosophy. I was only about 8 years old. Like we were talking about um, whether it's better to be a good runner or a fighter. It's interesting, right? Because that's to do with your philosophy. And he said, in most cases, it's probably better to be a better runner to get away from trouble. Because usually when people are trying to mug you, they don't go, Hua, right? They have a
mm,
knife. They have something. So, and if they
mm,
outrun you, you're not fit. It doesn't matter how muscly you are,
mm.
you're gonna have problems. So it's important to be um,
100%.
fit, right? And we also
Mm.
know that people who excess in
The-
this nafs. So how do you where do you draw the line in terms of being fit to provide and fit to protect?
So the I'm not sure if I'm qualified to speak on the topic of fit to work, but in terms of running, they say the first form of defense is to
Mm,
leave the situation. Is to no first form is to avoid the situation. You try
yeah,
you
to
you try to
de-escalate.
avoid getting yourself into those situations. If you're going to walk down a dark alleyway, right,
Yeah,
at night, where you know
yeah, yeah,
there's frequented by druggies and all sorts of misfits, you're
yeah,
asking for trouble,
yeah,
right? So you avoid that. But then if you do find yourself in a situation where you're about to get mugged, right? If you can run, run. If you can run, run. No point trying to take on three guys with knives, right? Or even one guy with a knife. If you can get away from the situation, get away, right?
yeah.
But there are circumstances, especially now. Our sisters are getting their hijabs pulled off. Um,
Absolutely.
there was an incident where it was actually somebody who joined my program, and they said to me the reason they joined was because they had an incident where somebody like mugged his wife in
Subhanallah.
front of him, and he wasn't able to do anything.
Subhanallah.
He wasn't able to run after the mugger, right? And had he even had the mugger even stayed there, I don't think he would have been capable of defending himself either, right? So
Mm,
and that had a massive impact on him, and that's when
mm.
he realized that look, what we're talking about, that he wasn't fit to be a protector when his wife needed him the most,
Mm.
right? And I don't know. I can't speak from a woman's perspective, but I assume that wasn't very. Um, she must have
It
felt like
doesn't
that.
it doesn't inspire confidence in your
It,
leader, and
yeah,
it can't be good for a brother to feel like that as well, to feel
yeah,
incapable.
absolutely. And that's when, because up until that point, he didn't think his health was an issue,
Mm.
and he needed motivation. And that's another topic in itself. When people are
Yeah,
looking for motivation and seeking motivation, motivation needs to be internal, needs to
yeah,
come from you, right? So
yes,
that day, motivation landed on him like a ton of bricks.
yeah,
Right? After that, he didn't need somebody else to motivate him. Right? But if we, I was on a call earlier today, and
yeah,
the person was saying, look, you have to get people to actually face all of the things that they've been avoiding, face the reality of their
yeah,
situation, because most of us, we
yeah,
avoid, speaking truth to ourselves,
yeah,
and we avoid the reality.
absolutely.
You know, like even sometimes on prospect calls, client calls, I ask them like, wow, like how is it affecting you? So, well, I avoid the mirror. I avoid looking at. photos of holiday pictures. I don't
Stuff.
like them, so I don't look at them. So their coping mechanism is avoidance.
Mm.
And quite often we do that, right? Avoidance is the coping mechanism. But when you're actually faced with the reality of something, that's when you can find a reason or purpose or motivation.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, we have a tendency. I remember reading a nice quote about this, and I'll try and pull it up. But this is this idea that if you don't face reality, you're going to start creating your own one, right? You're going to create your own one where you're explaining away and justifying. And I think one thing human beings are, because sometimes, like I mentioned Muslims, right? And people might take offense that we're critiquing Muslims, but what we sometimes just mean is this is what human beings are like. Mu'min, innal mu'mina khuliqa. He's created in certain ways. Allah talks about how and human beings are really good at like deceiving themselves, right, and lying to
Mm,
themselves. And um, there's a statement. It's attributed to one of the Salaf that he who does not live in the way of his beliefs starts to believe in the way he lives. So if you don't live in the
interesting.
way of your beliefs, you start to believe in the way you live. So you start to
Mm,
think that it's okay to eat like this. It's okay to be completely sedentary and be
mm,
immobile. It's okay that you need help. Like one of the famous poems of Allama Iqbal, right? Um, it's so beautiful. Of all the things after Arabic, I'd want to know Urdu just for the access of the Islamic literature, and Persian
yes.
maybe as well, Farsi. Allama Iqbal mentions the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He's on his horse and he drops his staff because he was known to always have a stick here for various uses, right? He had his stick and he dropped his stick. And it said that um, the way it described it, honestly, it was like the whole ummah. Remember, he's Amirul Mu'mineen. So every Muslim on the earth right now, he's the Amir of. Now, that's a level of Qiwamāh. Like, if you want to talk about being, the main man, right? He is the Amir of all Mu'mineen. And it said in the poem that the entire uh, Muslim ummah tried to leap forward and pick his stick up for him. Now, what would the average man do today? He would say, Khori love, go on then. Or I really appreciate it, right? But the way
Mm,
the Umar was is that he told everyone, move out of the way. Don't
mm,
dare get in the way of me and my burden. He got down and he went and picked up his own stick, meaning that unless necessary, he wants to be independent and take responsibility, right? He could have easily had someone do something for them. The personal motivation you're talking about.
mm,
He
mm,
in obviously it's part of Islam to accept help, right? You should seek help from healthcare professionals, from health and fitness coaches, from ulama, and so on. Yeah, all of these things come under the rubric of is'alu fas'alu ahla dhikr. That ask the people of knowledge, right?
mm,
In
mm,
within their particular fields, whatever, all of them. But the idea is that here's Umar ibn al-Khattab not allowing anyone to pick up his staff, his burden, his responsibility. And what tends to happen is that I feel, Ustad, that convenience in the days that we live in today is a killer. Convenience is
mm,
killing us, right?
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if um, the fact that you can get a bus and like my kids, I say, can you go to the institute, and they'll take a bus, and I'm like, why don't you just walk there? You see,
Mm,
why not just walk there? So for me, I find that convenience has caused a major problem, and it's that convenience is now affecting our functionality. So as I've mentioned, um, when it comes to working, right? I think the government standard of fit to work is extremely low compared to Islam. What I mean by that is that what they consider that if they give you enough pills, you have to go to work. Do you see?
mm,
You have to be like dying to not be fit to work. So for them, fit to work is really linked to the economy. Fitness is linked to you have a capitalist, you have a materialistic philosophy, you have a materialistic system, a capitalist system, and then you have this thing called GDP, which is the way a country, as you know, measures itself of how wealthy and successful it is. And the
mm,
way that GDP is accumulated is through wealth production, wealth distribution, basically people working. So their idea is get as many people working as possible so they pay tax and they contribute to public expenditure. But the problem with that is that the the real health of a person is not considered. Do you see? The real
mm,
health is not because if as long as you can be on pills and tablets and have two counselors and everything, off the NHS, just about enough to get you to work, then it's to work. For us as Muslims, the standard is a lot higher, and unfortunately, that has impacted people's marriage. Right? You hinted towards it. We're fasting as well, but we've hinted to it
mm,
that affects people's marriage from a relationship, intimacy stroke relationship, right? That you want
mm,
your wives to respect you and to feel that you're this strong protective person, but at the same
mm,
time, you are someone who is overweight, who has bulges in places that are more akin, and I'm being trying to be polite, Ustad, here, yeah.
mm,
So
mm,
more akin to the shape of women, but you have them yourself. I know you are more blunt
mm.
on some of your posts about this,
You know,
but
you
right.
know, I need to, what's the word? I need to not clarify. Um, um, I can't even think of the word, man. Fast is getting to me. I think the so most of my posts, there's no malice, there's no malicious
I know, because
intent.
I've met you.
But
I know
however,
I met you.
I do feel like sometimes you have to say these things just to shock people a little bit and wake them
Mm.
up because
Yep,
look,
yep, yep.
you say all the nice things and you say because look, there is there's an entire field of psychology that'll tell you, you say positive stuff, you say, you never highlight the negative, you always focus on the positive and you
Mm,
just say the positive and you say, hey, look how amazing is your life going to be when you're fit, when you're fit and
mm,
healthy and you can run around with your kids and be a good role model for them and you have chemistry at home,
mm,
with your wife. How amazing is life going to be? And you sell them the dream, right?
mm.
um but you never
Yep.
never talk about the negative things, or you never say, yeah, you never touch on negative stuff. Like there is that
Mm,
school of thought, um, and it's very popular. But what I've observed is that I'll say all that, but
yeah.
everyone will be like, yeah, thumbs up, like it,
And they don't
give
do
me a
anything
give me
about it.
a that, then not do anything
So
about
true.
it. Nothing happens. So, but then I'll say something like that. I once said something. I mean, in fact, it's happened to me on 3 or 4 occasions where I once said, I feel sorry for Muslim men who have never experienced getting a compliment of their wife, on the body, something like that. I can't remember.
Mm.
I said something, and this was on LinkedIn, and I got so many angry people in the comments calling it Islamophobia,
What?
and because I mentioned the Muslim and Muslim
Subhanallah.
men, and then I got people DMing me as well. But guess what?
That's
Some
ridiculous.
of the people that DM'd me, who have been following my content for years and never taken any action, they DM'd me to tell me off and to tell me I should remove that post and it's so offensive and stuff. A few days later, how do I join your program?
Exactly.
Like all these
Mm.
years, you've been following my uh, content where I've said all the nice things and whatnot, and you wasn't moved to take any action.
That's because you
But
gave him a whooping.
this one, you got angry, went away, thought about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
realized, hang on a minute, maybe maybe. Why did I get? Because I even said like, why did you get so upset about this post? Did it hit close to home? And they
Yeah.
realized, yeah, it was. This was very. This is.
They say there's a reason why that the Jannah is mentioned more than the Nar in the Quran, right? But the point is the Nar is mentioned. Okay.
Mhm,
The Nar and accountability, Yawmul Hisab, the day of debt, Yawmuddin. The whole point is that accountability and negative assertion does work, right? You can keep giving positive assertions and positive kind of push, but a lot of the time what people think is, oh, you know what, you made me feel great about myself, that means there's nothing to change. And then they walk off,
mhm,
and then you think, hold on, that's not what I said that there's significant things that you need to change. So sometimes, a negative assertion exists. Maybe if there was like a ratio, it would be something like 3 to 1 or something, right? In the Quran, it's just a little bit above mentioning warnings than there are about mentioning, Jannah. But I think
mm,
the idea that you're any form of da'wah, let's widen it the conversation out a bit, but any form of da'wah should be just Allah loves you, you're great, yeah, everybody else is a hater, don't worry about what people think, just keep going, love yourself. Those are beneficial for someone who has like major insecurities, or they don't have they've been hollowed out through some trauma or something. But generally speaking, that can also be very harmful, because it's telling you there's nothing you need to change about yourself. And fundamentally, I think we all need to spread a wider message that no, we need to change ourselves. And this is one of the beauties of Islam. The beauty of Islam is you get rewarded for anything that you achieve in someone else that's khair. You know that. That's why the Prophet, when
mm,
he says, Inna dala ala khair kafa'alihi, that indeed in any directing towards good, right? And what is good health? That's good. You get the reward of that person's action. Now, in the West, that might be seeming like judgmental and perhaps even nosy. And obviously, there are judgmental, shaming, nosy ways of doing things that we both disagree with. But the issue is the fact that you're enabling people to be happier in their families, more respected and valued, by their spouse, right? Um, on either side of the marriage, right? The wife should not expect to be carried around by her husband for the rest of her life, in wheelchair to wheelchair. If the health problems were unavoidable, if they were avoidable, you can't eat your way into a wheelchair, whether you're the husband
mm,
or the wife, and then expect that
mm,
person to, do that and not feel that there's some responsibility there. So in terms of what fit to work, I don't think so. I don't think the standard that is in this country, which is uh, just to satisfy being able to work, is enough. As for the family, that has many dynamics, and I was mentioning to you offline that it's nice to go for a long run through the park and to beat my children, and
mm,
to take them to play sports in football or badminton or cricket, and it's nice to give them a spanking. And the reason, as a dad, it's nice
mm,
because you show them how to win and lose gracefully, right? That you don't gloat when you win and whinge and blame the racket or whatever when you're losing. But also on
mm,
top of that, because part of masculinity is raising other masculine traits in your children. And I think
mm,
if you can't run with your kids, you can't exercise or jog with
mm,
your kids, you can't play sports, when it
mm,
cannot be avoided. We have to keep adding that caveat, because you and me are going to
mm,
get some bad press about how we
mm,
haven't got someone who's clinically
mm, mm,
obese or something, right? Which
mm.
isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about choices.
Let's majority of the illnesses in the West is avoidable. Right, majority of
Mm.
the illness in the West
Well, if you say
come
avoidable, you're
from
saying it's self-imposed to some degree. Then,
7 pounds. I mean, most of the chronic illnesses, right? Chronic disease, as they call chronic. We know that you can put diabetes into remission and stuff. They're not
yes,
degenerative chronic illnesses as we like to believe. We like to believe that there's certain illness and
you
that's it.
can
You've got it
reverse
now for the
them.
rest of your life. Can't do
Mm.
anything about it. Now, look, what are the biggest killers in the West? Heart
Mm.
disease, diabetes, strokes, and guess what? Most of that comes from overconsumption. Most of
Mm.
that is preventable. Majority of the disease in the West, and majority of disease, especially in the West,
Mm.
are preventable. Um,
Yeah.
so the most of it's related to overconsumption.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you were saying in terms of, so we're talking about being a protector, right? And you're talking
Yes.
about health and
Physical
running and
strength.
all this. So you know we're obviously we have to find the precedents in the Quran and the Sunnah. So
Mm.
I think, should we talk about some of that? Like, where is the precedence in the Quran and Sunnah to be fit, to be strong? Um,
Yeah.
First of all,
Yeah.
f- I mean, even going back to protector, as a Muslim man, right? We should be able to. You should be able to defend and protect your own honor,
Mm.
that of your families, and the example we gave before, that brother,
Mm.
he wasn't able to protect the honor of his wife,
Mm.
right? And especially now, man, with so much hate and Islamophobia, we are
Yeah.
more
That's so true.
susceptible
So
to be
true.
victims of abuse and violence and assaults, right? So we have to be, you have to be prepared, right?
Mm,
The um, أعدوا لهم ما استطعتم قوة,
mm.
right? You have to prepare all that you can of might
Of all that you
and
can with
strength,
strength, yes. Yeah, yeah.
right? So you have to be prepared, right? The so then protecting your honor, that of your families, and then that of your land and your people, right?
Mm,
And in the Quran, again, we don't read the Quran, we don't understand the Quran, we don't read the Quran. That is the problem. And we speak about that earlier.
I
We
agree.
are so content at just
We don't
reciting it,
contemplate on the Quran.
that's it. Because anybody who's read the Quran cover to cover, even once, their world paradigm shifts, the worldview
Mm,
shifts, right? Because again, in the Quran, you'll see there's so much Allah talks about justice, and He talks about social justice, social
mm,
welfare, all this stuff that we don't really talk about, right? Um,
mm,
and zakah comes with salah, and then
mm.
every time Allah mentions zakah, it mentions salah, and then every time it mentions salah,
And
it mentions zakah.
i'dilu, Allah says justice is from taqwa. And
Awfu bil
therefore there should
uqud,
be an increase in talking
right?
about justice in Ramadan.
And
But
then
it isn't.
something else that's in the Quran again and again,
Mm,
striving in the cause of Allah.
mm.
Striving in the cause of Allah. Um,
The
and
J word.
and yeah, the J word. And some scholars
Yeah.
have said that that would have been the fifth pillar of Islam. And
Mm,
this was a rite of passage. All the Sahaba were involved. There's so many surahs, Surah Muhammad, you know, uh, what's the surah without the
Surah Tawbah also.
Bismillah? Surah Tawbah, Surah Muhammad. There's so many surahs, right? And how
Mm.
many battles did the Prophet fight,
Yeah.
right? There's so many.
Yeah.
And then, so And then, it's interesting because Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi says, if you're overweight, consider yourself disabled. And in the
Mm,
verse Allah talks about battle, he
mm,
says the people who are excused are people who are disabled,
mm,
people who are ill, and just right.
mm.
And then people who are disabled are excused. And Ibn al-Qayyim says that people who are overweight are disabled. I just found that
Yeah.
interesting
Well,
connection
it can
there.
definitely be debilitating, being extremely, because of the obvious things, which is uh, like, I want to be careful that we're not going around picking on people individually, just like someone doesn't wear hijab or someone who's
Mhm.
overweight. We're not picking an individual out. We're speaking in general terms that, excess weight, which everyone has to some degree or not, right? A little bit of weight on you, that is on your body, is quite natural. But the idea that, you have, like, because you can't be like, 0.2%, fat,
No, no,
muscle ratio or whatever, right? Even the guys who do this, very unnatural, it's not sustainable.
no.
They're dehydrating themselves and starving
Extreme.
themselves, and
It's extreme. It's very
lighting,
extreme.
and all of these things. I heard from a PT. I was watching this program by this quite well-known PT, and he said a lot of the fitness coaches, what they do is they train to the max and starve themselves and train and oil and lighting
Dehydrate
and everything.
themselves. Yeah,
And
yeah,
they what they do is then they wear like 7 or 20, like 20 different kind of clothes that they wear to take all their
yeah. Mm,
pictures, and then the rest of the year, for the 11 months of the year, they're
mm,
basically just eating chocolate and doing webinars, because they could keep putting out these pictures where they were really, really fit, and they don't have to
mm,
be right now. And what tends to happen is um, that creates that kind of unachievability, right? Or or a target that is not real, basically, or
understandable.
sustainable. But the
Oh,
fact
yeah.
is what is also not sustainable is the other extreme, which is more common, which is being overweight, having excess fat, frontal fat specifically as well, which makes you like 30, 40, 50%, depending on your age, more susceptible to having diabetes or high blood pressure. None of those illnesses are good, for God's sake. You're not going to
Mm.
enjoy your food. If you enjoy your food, you would want to be healthy, because you're not going to be able to enjoy your
Mm.
food. You won't,
In terms of,
you know.
sorry, Ustaz. So in
No,
terms
go
of
ahead.
shape, Allah says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ.
I was going to
Right?
mention this ayah. وَأَنْ
Right?
الَّذِي خَلَقَكَ فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَلَكَ.
Naam,
You know,
naam. Right? So Allah
subhanallah.
says, look, so for me, I understand that when Allah says, creating the best form, so your natural shape is giving you. is the best shape,
Yeah.
right? And we weren't created to be obese, unhealthy, and diseased, right? And another way I look at it, is that, and I used to think this, but then I came across a hadith. I thought, you know what, it ties in. So, Allah says that, we have created you as a middle nation to be witnesses unto mankind, right?
Yeah.
So I believe every Muslim is a walking billboard. Every Muslim is a walking billboard for Islam,
No doubt. Everyone,
right?
yeah.
Now
Everyone's an
imagine,
ambassador of Islam.
now
Agreed.
imagine all of us looked fit and healthy.
Mm.
Imagine every Muslim, and
Absolutely.
again, if we followed our religion properly, and we saw it, as I'm using the term religion, if we used Islam, if we saw Islam as a way of life, not just as a religion, as a
Mm.
complete code of life, then we would
Mm.
all be in good shape. We'd all be healthy and in
Of
good
course.
shape, minus the
Of course.
the odd the person who can't help it, right? Now,
Of course.
there's, if you notice, right, you know Kurdish guys, have you noticed that they're very fit? These
I
Iraqi
haven't. No.
Kurdish guys, have
No.
you noticed? I
I don't
don't
know
know
many
that,
Kurdish people, probably. That's probably the reason why.
maybe in London there
Yeah.
isn't, but if you
Yeah.
notice, they're all very smart, they're in good shape, right?
Mm.
And it's their culture.
Mm.
In their culture, it's frowned on, and it's their culture to be in good shape. You'll see if you community of Kurds, like watch their weddings or something, you'll see they
Mm.
all look very smart, very
Mm.
well groomed, good shape, right? Just, yeah, they're a good example, and it's in their culture. But that should be our our culture as Muslims, right? Especially we spoke about last week about the food aspect. Now, and I spoke to you saying that we should do something about, okay, that's the food aspect. If you take care of the food aspect, that's one aspect. The second aspect is the exercise side, right? So where's
Mm.
the precedence in Islam for that? So I was talking about Muslims as a billboard for Islam, and then I thought, oh
Yes.
no, that could be a form of dawah, but there's a
Mm.
hadith that supports that. When the Prophet ﷺ wrestled Rukana and he beat him,
Mm.
the hadith,
Yeah. Yeah.
Arabic,
Very famous story how he wrestled,
yeah,
and
and he
that's an
beat him and he
amazing
took him
feat.
down, and then
Is-
he believed in his prophethood because of that.
Mm.
And then the scholar said that, without a doubt, that was the reason. Sorry, again, let me, for the viewers, Rukana was a strong, formidable wrestler who was
Yeah.
difficult to beat, and he challenged the prophet to beat him, and the prophet beat him, and then he
Exactly.
accepted Islam based on that. So the prophet had to have been stronger than the other
Yes.
this Rukana, right? And he would have been in his 50s at the time.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Of
I'm
course.
estimating correctly, he would have been in his 50s.
Yeah.
And also, we also know, so then based off of that, I make the claim that strength is a forgotten sunnah.
Yes.
Strength is sunnah. Also, the other ahadith that I used to validate that, the Prophet and the Sahaba, they fought in battles where they had to carry heavy armor,
Yes.
right? And man, like even I consider myself quite fit, but I still don't think I could. I'm fit enough to be a soldier,
Yeah.
right? And a soldier in those days,
Yeah.
where you're traversing over land that is like the desert, right? I don't
Yes.
consider myself as fit as the Sahaba were then,
Yeah.
right? So the Sahaba and the Prophet were, and they, a lot of the Sahaba were in their 50s, and even I believe the Prophet said some of his last battles, he was in his 60s,
Yeah.
if I'm
You
correct.
gave me different. You gave me advice once when we were at the retreat, talking about armor. Right. I think a nice way to look at it is you got weight you don't need and the armor that you need to carry. Right. You don't you need to have a shield made of fat. On your thing, on your
Mm,
and so what happened is I was telling you at the retreat, isn't it, that although I don't walk around with a chainmail armor or whatever through the street. Yeah, that would be some crazy thing. But I try to go with just I think about between 18 to 20 kg distributed. I have, like, as you know, I do rucking, right? So I've got like metal plates in my rucksack. I go everywhere, even if I go to Qiwamāh, even if I've gone out for half an hour. I take like metal plating. So it all adds up to, because there's various kinds. There's one that I have over the shoulder that I showed you, and then I got the one that's in my rucksack. It's about 18 to 20 kg, and what I found is in scientific studies, I think you'll find this interesting, that in the scientific studies in the journals, they found that when you carry more weight than your actual body weight, yeah, um, not the one that you have, like basically, even if you're overweight, if you're fat, your bones tend to, when they press together, it actually sends a
Mm.
signal to your brain to strengthen
Yeah.
the bones so that it
Yes.
can
Yes.
carry
Yes.
that amount of weight. So that's why a lot
I
of
think I.
very
I think I.
overweight people, a lot of
Yeah.
overweight people are actually quite strong because of the fact that they have to
Yes.
carry so
Yes.
much weight. So what
Yes.
happened
Yes.
is if you then put weight that isn't yours, your body doesn't have, like, it doesn't know. So when you put 10, 15, 20 kg and you go rucking, what your body does is it gives you a signal to basically strengthen your spine, strengthen your
Strengthen, yeah,
joints, and all of
strengthen
these things.
yeah, skeletal
So
system. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a way of
Body.
training your body into wanting to be stronger, wanting to burn more calories because of the it's a bit like a weighing scale between the bones. So what happens is the
Yeah.
bones then send a signal telling your body, maybe you can elaborate, but I found that we should be probably, I don't see it, like someone will say to me, right, what's in the rucksack then? And I like, nothing, just literally just metal plates. And for them that's mad. And I'm
Well,
thinking,
still, I'm going to advise you again, though, unless you're
yeah,
carrying something that looks like, get a weighted vest because it distributes
yeah,
the weight more evenly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you have a heavy rucksack at the back, you might end up
No, I
with
don't.
back
I
problems.
have now the one at the front. So I've
Okay.
got like, I can get like an 8 9 kg, which is basically in my rucksack, right?
Mm.
And then I've got like another 14 kg, which goes over I didn't show you my shoulder strap one, the one that goes over the
No,
thing. Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
I mean, I learned that the hard way. If you put too much, it affects two things. One is obviously it can cause your body to not be aligned in the right
Wait.
way, and it
Yes.
affects your affects your if I hope I say it correctly, it affects your cadence, your natural
Mm.
stride. Yeah,
Mm.
you can affect your natural, like if you put all your weights on your leg, if you put leg
Mm.
weights on,
Mm.
you'll find that your natural stride in your what they call your cadence
Yes.
will be affected. So you're absolutely right,
Yeah.
it should be distributed, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
be a good like that. I'm doing that, alhamdulillah.
So yeah, and in terms of precedence for strength, another one is the strong believer is better than the weak believer,
Yes,
though there's good
yes.
in both. And the word strong in there wasn't defined or
Yeah,
constricted.
al-mu'minu al-qawi khayrun wa ahab. So it's not even
Yeah,
that he's better,
yeah,
that
better
he's
and more
ahab.
beloved to Allah. Yeah.
Yes.
But so again, there's some precedence in there from strength. We also know the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged. I believe there's not a hadith. People push it as a hadith, but I believe it was saying of Hazrat Umar. But some scholars say, yeah, it has some relevance about archery, swimming, racing. Again, this is all in preparation for battle, right?
Yes.
And then we also know the Prophet ﷺ raced.
Mm.
He raced Hazrat Aisha once when she
No,
was young and
yeah,
once.
no, no, there's authentic. They're not all about yeah, no, I looked into this. There's many evidences that point to teach your, people
Children.
archery and all of these things they mentioned, and horse riding, and these types of things, right? And
Mm.
the point I'm saying is that, uh, that nice saying, right? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than be a
Yeah,
gardener
yeah.
in a
Somebody got
war,
offended
right?
when I posted that once.
Right, right.
So,
Probably a
I,
gardener. But the
no,
but the
no,
point is,
yeah,
yeah.
probably got.
But the point is I think, the idea is to be a functional Muslim, you should try to basically develop your strength. And the fact that you don't have to walk around with a sword and a shield in the street doesn't mean you can't walk around with additional weight, in a distributed manner. So we don't give, bad advice, right? In a distributed manner. What's wrong with that? And the
No.
beautiful thing about it is, by the way, when I drop all the weights, right?
Mm,
I feel so light. I feel like I can, like, I feel like when I'm running, I feel like I've got more resistance, and I feel stronger, because when I'm walking, I've got so much weight on. I don't run with weights
mm,
on, though I actually do
mm,
run sometimes with weights on.
mm,
Um,
mm,
but that's the benefit. And I would say the other thing is al-mu'minul qawi, this khayrun wa ahab. Of course, two things can be right at the same time, right? So you can have two interpretations. One is al-mu'minul qawi, yani عنده يعني قوة في إيمانه, that he has strong iman. And we all know
mm,
the fact that many of the older Sahabis, yeah, the older Sahaba were people who, like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he was known as being valiant, strong, brave, okay, but he had very, they had, skinny, slender, not necessarily muscular, not necessarily
mm,
bulky. They didn't have, like, they weren't looking all like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, right? But the
mm,
important thing is that both count. The fact is the interpretation of strong iman and also the strong mu'min, which is to do with physical strength. They
mm,
both count in this instance. And as you've
mm,
said, when people are, especially in this day and age, I think there's a scapegoating going on, and I wanted to kind of touch on this maybe a later point. But why do you think it's happening? Why is it that we're not being ambassadors of Islam in the way that we come across in terms of our physique and our health and all of these things, right? Why is it that
mm,
why? Because you've said it's mostly to do with sedentary life and overeating. That was your point.
yeah,
Why is that?
convenience. I mean, we're living in an obesogenic environment, right? Um, like, well, a hundred
We're
years ago,
encouraged to enjoy and eat and try everything.
yeah, that a hundred years ago. I mean, we lived very stressful lives, obesogenic environment. A hundred years ago, first of all, most of the food was like
Mm,
organic and wholesome. So even if you wanted to catch a chicken, right, you have to run after this chicken and catch it, right? Or
mm.
if you're a
Yeah,
hunter gatherer,
you have to
you
burn
have to
certain
go for days
calories.
looking for food. So you're burning half the calories you're going to
Food
consume
preparation,
just to
hunting,
obtain
all
the food,
takes anything. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Now you get pre-peeled
N-
eggs.
Not just that, but now what I'm saying is you press a button on your phone. Right, so
Yeah.
I'll give you a more simpler explanation. So 100 years ago, it was quite
Mm.
difficult to get a meal with 2,000 calories, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And number one, number two, um, to get that meal, you'd have to spend 700 calories, 500 calories to get that meal,
Right.
right? Now you press a button on
Yeah.
your phone, and 30 minutes later, you've got 2,500 calories at your doorstep. You didn't expend a single calorie to obtain
In
those
there.
calories,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now couple that with with stress from work and people are using food as a coping mechanism. It's the simplest and easiest, most reliable coping mechanism, right?
Mm.
And then the whole environment where the food is hypercaloric and hyperpalatable,
Mm.
and then um, the mentality we have as well, because
Mm.
50 years ago we saw if you were overweight, you were overweight, right? And everybody acknowledged it. Now we have this, hypersensitivity to it. We can't talk about it. Or if you say people it's offensive. Don't say it. You're fat shaming. You're body shaming.
Mm.
Everything's fat shaming. Everything's body shaming, right? And then
Mm.
the other thing is our perception of what a healthy weight looks like is skewed. You will not believe the amount of guys that I speak to. So I've only got 5 6 kg to lose. 15 20 kgs later, they still have 5 kg to lose.
Mm.
Now think about the
Subhanallah.
starting point and think about what their perception of what weight they should be. And I mean, this is all kind of innocent understanding. So
Yeah.
brother who joined me, he was 107 kg, 5'6".
Yeah.
No, what am I talking about? 6'6" or 6'5", right? He was 107 kg. And he thought, oh, I'm a tall guy, I've only got 5 kg to lose. He lost 10 kg and realized he still got some fat. Lost another 10. Eventually, he got down to 80 kgs as a
Wow.
6'5" guy, right?
Are you
And
sure
he
he's not
still had
5'5" now? Is
no,
he gone?
he's
Some part of him gone missing?
and he still had a bit of belly fat
Yeah.
because he's never done any weight training or anything. He had very low muscle mass, very, very low muscle mass,
Yeah.
He did BJJ and the hit training and stuff, but he'd never done any weight training. So his muscle mass
Mm.
was so low that even at 80 kg, he still had a bit of, because he wanted to look shredded. So what happens? First of all, people come in with very small goals because they think they failed so many times, and they don't want to
Mm.
set a big goal. It's scary, so
Yeah.
they make a set a small goal. I'll just lose 10 kg. I'll be happy if I just lost 10 kg. But then when they lose that 10 kg and they find out, oh, it's quite easy. I did it relatively easy. I can easily
Yeah.
continue this, right? So they carry on and lose some more, and then they get more confident and think, you know what? Why don't I just go for the home run and try
Yeah.
to get muscle and get abs? So then I tell them, okay, it's gonna be a bit harder now. Like it's what got you here isn't gonna get you there, right?
Right.
But you know, a lot of people come to realize that, damn, I was holding 2 or 3 stones more than I thought I was.
Mm.
But quite a lot of
Mm.
guys think that you could be 100 kg and not be overweight. And sometimes they're less than they're shorter than 6 foot. They're
Yeah.
5'5" and they're 100 kg and they think that's that's normal.
Subhanallah.
I mean, if you check on my social media, almost everybody thinks that 100 kg is a normal weight. It's so not normal weight.
I
Most
think.
men,
Mm. I think one of
most men,
the no, go ahead, Bismillah.
most men, especially Bengali men, right?
Mm.
Most men should be between 60 and 80 kg. Should be under 80 kg, most men,
That's
right?
your
But
recommendation.
yeah, that would be a healthy body weight. That would be, according to clinically healthy body weight, they would be under 80 kg for most men, unless they've been training weights for years and they're over 5'10", 5'11". If they've been weight
Mhm.
training and they're over 5'11", then they can be on the other side of 80 kg. Still, they'll be under 90 kg.
Right.
Guys that are over 90 kg, either holding too much fat, very tall, and they're probably on steroids as well.
Mm.
Uh,
One thing I was going to ask is, it's also the accumulation of fat has a very interesting um, way that takes place in men and women as well. The fat goes into, generally speaking, into different kind of deposits itself in different places, right? But since we're talking about kind of men's strength and fitness, um, there's the like one thing I realize is that I've had points where I've lost weight and gained weight, but
mm,
one thing I've found is to to a lot of people, they just want to lose belly fat. That's their number one concern. But
mm,
one of the strange things is that the way you accumulated body fat, often reversal of that happens within the same
yeah,
trajectory.
yeah,
So
in fact,
if you're getting fat on your belly, the chances are there was on your arms, on other places, your legs, other,
mm,
your other parts of your body,
yeah,
and it really is often not. I don't know always. I'm not talking about everybody in the world because I don't know everybody and I don't know. But often you find it goes there last, which means generally that when you start getting into fitness and start having a calorie deficit and start involving yourself in like weights, light weights, and aerobic exercises, what tends to
mm,
happen is that you're going to lose fat everywhere else and you're going to have that kind of skinny fat look, right? You're going to
mm,
lose it everywhere else except the stomach, except the and then
yeah,
finally you're going to start losing around your bellies. But a lot of people,
yeah,
what they're doing is they're training and they're always looking for a result that is immediate, which also comes to do with another part of the when you said that we live in a society that encourages, it also encourages short-term plans, wanting to get
mm,
everything tomorrow, or yesterday, and there's no long-term plan. But I think one thing we should probably recognize is that if it took that long for you to put it on, because it just chips away, isn't it? You're eating over
yeah,
your
yeah,
maintenance calories, and so what
yeah,
eventually happens is you've been tipping that scale for years and years and years, and that's how you accumulated the fat. The only way
yeah,
you can do that is not by doing something overnight or 1 month or whatever. You have to change the way you live your life, and that's why Islam is a way of life. You have to actually change your attitude towards that. And I would say that one of the biggest things, and I did, and I'm happy for you to kind of comment on it as well, because I really wanted to get this across to the viewers, is the problem isn't just the problem isn't with Islam, it's our understanding of Islam. Okay. And our understanding of Islam is affected based on different contexts that we find ourselves in. We live in a Western society, and on average, the Muslim sadly will have the same aspirations and goals that would not be dissimilar to the average non Muslim. So, what ends up happening is we build this thing, what I like to call the the mubaholics. Like you go to if Alcoholics Anonymous, you have mubaholics Anonymous, yeah, where they come to
Mm,
people like you and they have to confess for their sins that they've been binging on what is ultimately, because I don't think that any of the foods that people are eating, they're not telling you, oh, Coach Adam, I've been eating secretly at night, I've just been eating pork for sehri, all right, I've been eating pork rashers, right? That's not what's
mm,
happening. What's happening is the halal food is killing us. Yeah, we are
mm,
we are um because the scholars say this very nicely. They say if the big things are small to a man, yeah, meaning the bigger goals in the life are small, the small things become big. And what that
mm,
basically means is that um people start looking at the deen in a very, very narrow way. And I'll give you an example, right? Many scholars will tell you second, third, fourth wife, second, third, fourth, yeah, fourth wife. They're mubah. They're mubah. It's not sunnah. It's just mubah. I'm not doing this to open up a can of worms,
are you
right?
sure it's not
Promise.
fun? The way some brothers are carrying on online at the minute, you
Right.
think it's fun?
Let's assume the first one, to keep them from fitna, to keep them from haram, becomes wajib. Yeah. Let's assume the first marriage at the very least is wajib because it keeps the person away from fitna.
Mm,
No problem. Now
mm,
they'll say that the mubah thing is special. I wanna address a specific thing, and then I'm gonna apply it to food, if you'll allow me, Ustad. Yeah.
sure,
So
sure.
they say the
Can
second,
I,
third, and fourth
can I-
is mubah.
yeah,
So you want to add
can I just
something?
ask you something? You asked me earlier,
Mm,
so why are Muslims why we're not living? One of the reasons is Muslims just don't know. They don't know how much Islam says about these things.
of
Um,
course. It's
and
it's ignorance.
if
It's
you have
not
time,
malice. It's ignorance.
if we have time, inshallah, there's so many other verses that I want to kind of loosely
Well,
like bring
I'll
in.
tell you, I'm going to make this point, and then I want to invite you to actually start mentioning. We'll explore some of these verses, inshallah, because I
Mm,
think
mm,
this, for me, this comes to the core of, what the problem is. Because, and obviously, it's going to be wider than food. It's going to be wider
mm,
than whether a person's training or not. Which is the fact that, to just kind of furnish this example, this point, right? That second, third, and fourth are mubah, right? They're permissible, right? But the problem is that, is it permissible to do something permissible that destroys your first marriage, creates a faith crisis with your children, right? Creates builds daughters who are now committed feminists now because of what you've done, right? And I know through our counseling services that we run in Al Madad, we know girls that are cutting themselves now, because the daughters that are cutting themselves because of the extramarital, second, third, fourth marriage, right? Now you have to consider that that is the response I'm going to get. You can't say you better accept the deen, and that's it, because you married a person who understands that. And also, a lot of people don't know that Fatima radiallahu anha, she stipulated only one wife with Ali radiallahu anhu, and then when she passed away, that's the only time he remarried. But the point I want to get to is, you can't look at fiqh, right, through the lens of capitalist self-fulfillment and desire. You have to look at it from the aqidah of Islam. Because a lot of people, what they're doing is they're borrowing a Western purpose of life and then just finding a halal finance, halal Dubai, halal second marriage, halal this. What they're doing is that they're not actually doing it because it's halal, it's because it's convenient. And the religion is being scapegoated to get away with what you really want to do at the cost of other people. So, for example, if a person does that and they know that this is going to cause so much harm and all of these things, if their children now are not there, they've divorced and they're separated and you can't even raise your children, whether you like it or not, you are accountable for the halal decisions you make, for what harm it causes. And for that reason, when see, and I was mentioning this offline, so I don't like, I don't want to offend nobody, but at the same time, I don't want to in any way hide the truth, which is, I'm shocked when I go to the masjid, right? And I find 20-year-olds sitting on a chair, more often than when I saw in the late 80s and 90s, when I used to go Taraweeh with my dad in the late 80s, and when I was to go mosque myself in the 90s, to see so many young people on chairs. And I say to them, "Are you all right?" Like, and he goes, "Oh, my knee just doesn't bend that way." Do you get it? Yeah, my back doesn't this and that. And just think to yourself that, yes, there are valid cases for those who want to jump down our throats, but a lot of it is preventable. A lot of it is because, sedentary life, gaming, poor diet,
Mm,
poor
mm,
gut,
mm.
poor health,
I-
and
I'll be
all
more
the issues
straightforward
from
and I'll ask the question.
it.
Why are boys in the 18-year-old boys, early 20s, why are men
Mm.
in the early 20s, or late teens, bursting out of their thobes?
Yeah,
Man, in my days,
yeah,
and there's still many men my age, we used to wear thobes to hide our bellies,
yeah,
right? When I put on a bit
100%.
of weight, I used to wear
Sometimes
thobes in
that
the
happens,
office.
isn't it? People start wearing thobes because it's like,
I did it.
Brian, I didn't know you started like getting really firm on the deen. He's like, no,
And
I'm just fat.
I did it when I was overweight. I used to wear thobes, it hides the
Did
belly,
you?
right? Yeah. So so I think the
Very
um
flattering, isn't it? Because it hides
but
the
yeah, it's flattering, right? You couldn't see my belly. Now they're bursting out of them.
bursting out of the thobes. I've seen that.
Yeah. So why? Like why are young men bursting out of
I
them?
agree.
And if they are like that at
No, I
that
totally
age,
agree.
if they're like that at that age, where are they gonna be when they're 40? And that brings me to a ayah of the Quran, right? Where
Bismillah.
Allah says, until he reaches maturity and reaches 40 years, he says, "My
Mm,
Lord, enable me to be grateful for your favor which you have bestowed upon me." And
mm,
the reason I find that verse interesting is because when you hit 40, when a man hits 40, you can see what kind of life he's led. There's two types of men. You can see the person who's looked after his health
mm,
and the person who hasn't.
mm,
The lines start to divide,
mm.
right? And when Allah mentions about grateful for your favor, what can be a greater ni'mah than health? In fact, there's a hadith that also says after the word of after the word of faith, ask for, the best thing you can be granted is uh is health.
Al
So
afia wal
ask,
afu, I think.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, wellness, right?
Yes.
And ask Allah for wellness, right? And so then over here, Allah's talking about age. He's talking about being grateful for his for the blessings. And we know that if you've got to 40 and you haven't got diabetes, you haven't got some sort of high cholesterol or something, right? You've done okay. But then
Mm.
after 40 is where these things really start to catch up. Um,
Yes. Absolutely.
so if you're 40 and you're quite ill, or you start to fall ill and things start to catch up, it's fine. But if these things are catching up with you in your 20s
Yeah,
and your
that's the
30s,
problem. Wearing thobes, right? Like, yeah, one thing I can whinge a little bit about young people because I deal with them for as occupation. I work with the youth. But if you're busting out of your thobe, what you need to, another thing, right? They're constantly having haircuts, right? What's the point of having like, a haircut like this when you got a bulge that looks like best kebabs on the back of your head, right?
mm,
What's the point of having all these like, I don't know, by the way, when I used to go to the barbers for a haircut, I used to say medium. So I don't know what these guys do, but they got this and that. Right? We used to just say medium, isn't it? Side and back, shorten it, and that's about it. When you're doing all this fade, that's what they call it, fade. When you're doing fade and
mm.
all that, and then you got this roll that looks like two donuts sellotaped together, right? Then
I can't
haircuts
try to
and
imagine
fashion,
two donuts and together.
right?
Right?
Haircut and fashion isn't going to solve that problem. Haircuts and fashion are not going to solve that problem. What's going to solve that problem is not haircuts and fashion, but diet and exercise. Those are the things. And I'm thinking, if you guys are dying at this age at 20, you got all these problems or whatever, you can't just keep, cutting your hair and, wearing fancier clothes. What you need to do is and I think that's one of the things my wife says to me, She says, I'm living off my younger days. That's what she says.
Yes.
Because in
It's
my
true.
younger
It can
days, I used to, play for different. I played for various football teams. I did
be.
cross country. I used to enter tournaments and all of those things. And I think that if I didn't do that, there'll be so much of who I am today based on that. My character as a Muslim is
Mm,
based on competitive environments, based on fitness and strength, based on, one of the things when you exercise and you train or you play any sports, contact sports or otherwise, what happens is you also feel like I deserve to take up the space I take up. You feel comfortable in yourself. You feel confident. It builds confidence. And
mm,
unfortunately, what happens is you get a lot of 40-year-olds who aren't confident. And the reason is because they were the ones who were not take, who hated PE, do you want to go there? Do you want to exercise? And I think that, I was going to ask you about advice for people who are 40 plus, like me. Yeah, I need advice that after 40, I started to realize something. And part of that realization was actually sitting with you, in this retreat that we went to, right? That um, I can't just eat right and walk now. I cannot eat right and just walk. I'm gonna have to actively do training and exercising because um, there's like when you're bursting with life. Young people
mm,
need to realize. The scholars used to say that we were once young, but you were never old. Right? Young people have never been old. But us, we've been 20. We've been by dint of us being here right now. We've been 20 once. We've been 15. We know there were times, and I know you can relate, and like we can relate that we ate anything and it didn't have an effect. Like you could just do anything, and your body was like this incinerator. You could eat anything, and your body would just, your young body would just say, "Okay, I'll deal with it," and it needs to be dealt with. Now, food of a certain kind actually makes me feel sick, makes me feel ill, makes me feel drained and tired and lethargic. And also,
mm,
what I find is that um, it's not enough just to exercise, like just walk or whatever. That if you're
mm,
not building resistance in your bones, if you're not building resistance in your muscles, and you're not
mm,
building resistance in your mind, so everything's now starting to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, isn't it, that um, everything that we raised ننكسه في العمر. I don't want to get the ayah wrong. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
no.
ننكس. ننكس. It's a famous, here we go. ومن نعمر ننكسه في الخلق.
Mm,
ومن ومن نعمر, basically whoever we grant a long life to, giving him umr, life, years of life. ننكسه, we start to reverse. Very interesting.
yes, yes, yes.
Very interesting ayah in the Quran, that there's, just as when you were dependent and young and in your nappies, you could be 80,
Mm,
90, immobile and in your nappies or being cleaned after, right?
right,
So there
right.
is this arc of peak, and really the peak's supposed to be 40. 40 is supposed to be that, you're really, of all the good
Mm,
years you've put in, now you know, but what often happens is because people didn't take care of themselves, it starts to very rapidly come. And it's not, people should realize that your invincibility that you feel when you're young isn't there past 40. You need to actually now actively strengthen your bones, your muscles, and all of these things, right? um and I was going to ask you about this supplements, right? Now,
mm,
I take quite a few, right? Probably
mm.
about nine a day. I have a pill box and I have like nine supplements in the thing. And
Ah, yeah,
and
that's a
some of
lot,
these
man.
supplements, some of these supplements, I have so many that I can't have one every day because it would be too many. So some of them I put one every 2 days because that you're not meant to have a lot. But can I go through and ask you about some of these supplements? I know they don't
Go on,
replace good food and exercise, but can I quiz
go
you
ahead.
on this?
Go ahead. I
Creatine.
mean, since you're talking, before you do, because you're talking
Go on
about
then.
youth, let's there's the hadith, take advantage of five before five,
Yes,
right?
ijtanibu.
And when you are younger, you do have faster metabolism, and the other reason you're not supposed to have gained weight because you've not accumulated that many years of eating,
Mm,
right? It's,
yes.
most people gain weight. They're in a 300 calorie surplus, 200 calorie surplus, and they gain weight over years, and they don't notice it, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, like
But they also
how
start don't notice it because they're growing. Because they're growing,
yeah,
the fat sort of spreading as they're growing. So, but when they stop growing, then it starts going
yeah,
this way.
yeah, because they're growing as well, the body's using more energy, right? And
Mm,
when they stop growing, and then you know we you become overweight in mid 30s, in your 40s because you've been accumulating that weight slowly.
Yes.
But these guys managed to accumulate it in their youth. They're fighting their biology to get overweight. Man, they're asking for disaster. They're
Mm,
asking for a disaster, honestly. So, and even if, God forbid, even if they didn't, nothing serious happened, right?
mm,
Um, even if, sorry, they survived. I mean, they lived.
mm,
Imagine they
mm,
still live. Sometimes,
mm.
Allah wills it that they live to
That's right. You
70,
can be
right?
smoking and you can be 90 years
Yeah,
old, and you
they,
can,
they live to
yeah,
70.
people do that.
But the question is, what quality of life will they have?
Absolutely
Because
true.
there's health span and there's lifespan.
Mm,
Health span is how long you are fit and active for. You hear about the guy, he's still hiking mountains and he's 90. And then you've got the
mm,
guy who's in a care home at 60.
mm.
And he's being spoon fed and he can't do anything. He can barely walk up a flight of stairs. He's walking on a Zimmer frame,
Yes.
right? So which one of those guys you want to be? So if you are like overweight and in poor health and you survive, you're going to be the guy that can't walk up a flight of stairs. You're
Mm.
going to be the guy that needs to be nursed all day.
Fair
Um,
enough. I was going to
so
ask
take
before
advantage of
supplements, was that before
take advantage.
supplements? I wanted to
Sorry, take
about
advantage
this
of
particular thing about taking advantage of your health before. I wanted you
yeah.
to maybe give us some advice about if you had clients that said they smoked, that they smoke. I don't mean any kind of smoking, vaping, sheeshing, smoking. How does that affect this 5 before 5 from a from a coach's perspective, from your as a health coach? What would you be saying to someone like that?
I mean, if you're a chronic smoker, the statistics say that you're much higher likelihood of number of illnesses and you have a shorter lifespan. That's clinically proven. I don't
Mm,
know the exact numbers because I haven't looked into it
mm.
for time, but it's clinically proven. Yes, you're going to get the anomaly that's going to survive to 100 and smoke to,
Yeah,
10 a day.
we've seen it.
Uh,
I've seen it back
but
home. People like
but
this.
but but with that, it's and again in fiqh the same thing. The
Mm.
exceptions don't make the rule. Right?
Right.
So you have to go off of what the general statistics say.
Mm.
Um,
But how
yeah,
does that affect, for example, like if you had a client that said, I'm overweight and I smoke, would you be saying, well, hold on to the smoking. Now here's a regimen of training. Here's a regimen of how you should eat. Or would you start zeroing in on their smoking habits?
no,
What would
no,
you do?
I don't interfere. If I'm honest with you, I don't interfere
Yeah,
because
serious. That's
yeah,
interesting.
the
Why
reason,
not?
no, because they know the smoking is not good for them. They know, right?
Yeah,
And me telling them again is not going to make any difference because I have had, and hopefully they'll quit or they'll cut back as they get improve their health.
yeah,
But if I create that barrier straight away,
yeah,
then they won't take that path. I mean, I had a guy. He's a smoker, right? Um, he managed to lose a lot of weight, got into great
yeah,
shape, right?
yeah.
And I believe he's cut down on his smoking now. He still smokes,
Yes,
but he's cut down
yes,
significantly. Um,
yes.
so I try not to present that barrier. If you look at all the different facets of health, if I can improve 3 out of 5, I'm
Mm,
happy.
yes. But smoking is such an accelerator of so many. Look, I know it can act as it does. The tobacco can be a hunger suppressant as well, right? So a lot of people, if they quit smoking immediately, they're going to crash. They're literally going to overeat to the
Mm.
point of another form of illness, right? But generally speaking, there seems to be no plus side to it. It just seems to
No,
be that
I
it.
mean, when I was in madrasa, right? Um, and now I understand the nuances more. When I was in madrasa, my friends and I, it's my brother-in-law now, right?
Mm.
And we went dived into this thing because
I'm not talking about the
there's
hukum, by the way. I'm talking
the
about
hukum. We
health.
deep dived into the hukum because the
Mm.
scholars told us
They differ on
they said
this. Yeah.
it's makruh and not
Yeah.
even makruh tahrimi. To them, it's like makruh tanzihi, right?
Yes.
So, and there was ustad that he smoked there. And we're like, how can we were like young people, right? and we were
Yeah.
like, how can it be? How can it be makruh tanzihi or just makruh when it leads to
Mm.
um, almost inevitable death, right?
Mm.
And maybe now I would say, yeah, maybe it's makruh tahrimi and not haram because you can't make something haram just like that, you know.
I think it's
And
personally, just so you know, I think it's makruh. I don't think it's haram. But I
mm,
would be adamant that every single person I know should try and get off it because it's
yeah,
a it's
but
not a very good
makruh, what
habit.
level of makruh? That's the thing in it. Is
Yeah.
makruh that's
Yeah.
almost like mubah, right?
Yeah.
Tanzih and makruh. It'd be
Well,
makruh tahrimi,
statistically, I
right?
mean, I joke about it like this. I tell people that statistically more people are dying because they eat burgers than they are smoking. So you probably should
Yeah.
stop eating all this
It'd be makruh
fried
tahrimi,
chicken
isn't
and
it? And
huh?
makruh
Some
tahrimi
some
because
do say that, yes.
yeah, because we'd say that it's haram. Sorry, when I was young, I'd say it's haram, right? I'd say it's haram because it's killing yourself, but
Yeah.
it's killing
Yeah, I
yourself
don't think it is.
slowly. It's killing yourself
Yeah.
slowly, right? It's not like
So are smash burgers.
if you just slit your throat right and kill yourself, that's haram, right?
Yes.
But because of all of these other nuances, it's hard to
Yes.
say it's haram like that, and we don't understand
Yes.
because then it opens a dangerous precedent. Like I said,
Yes.
then you can say, well, eating burgers is haram. Eating,
Yeah.
like I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Fried
you know,
chicken
yeah,
should be haram
yeah.
by
I
the
mean, I
same
guess
thing.
we can argue about that. It's debatable because one is nourishing and it
But
still has
what
food.
I'm saying is that for you to quit something, you shouldn't need hukum here. You need
Mm,
common sense, and you
mm,
also need the wider maqsads of Islam, right? So,
mm,
like, I wouldn't look down on someone if they smoke, for example. I know people who
mm,
smoke; it doesn't bother me.
mm,
I know people who vape and sheesh or whatever; it doesn't bother.
mm,
You know, I'm even not a very antisocial. Like, if there are people who smoke and it's like outdoor, I'll sit with them and I'll order mint tea and they can smoke
mm.
whatever. And I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
because I don't want anyone to feel that I'm not going to now be with them because of these things, right? So that's how I am. I'm not like this person who's like,
Yeah.
it's haram, but what I'm saying is just purely from a health perspective. In the long term, in the short term, maybe you wean yourself off while you're training and exercising. Because I've also mentioned the negative aspect of a lot of people are actually suppressing a large amount of appetite through smoking. So when they
Mm,
quit, they actually, so that's that. But what I'm more inferring is, or what I'm asking is, at the end of the day, um, in the long term, there just seems to be no plus side to it. It seems to
no.
be really bad in terms of causing
Yeah.
cancers all across your body, lungs and this and that, because it's a carcinogenic. It's the whole point of carcinogens of any type. Yeah, carcinogenics are in your air fryer, by the way. Carcinogenics are at a certain level when oils burn too much, right? Don't
Yeah.
have a high
Yeah.
burning temperature.
It's
Carcinogenics
carcinogenic.
exist in
Everything.
the anti-stick, whatever, non-stick, whatever it's called,
Yeah,
Teflon
Teflon.
in the
Yeah.
thing. But the point is at least with the Teflon, you're making a stir fry, right? There's something you're doing with that, right? So carcinogenics
Mm,
are known to be dangerous because those are the things that create this, what they call the free radicals, right? And that's what creates this mutation in the cell or cancer cell, and then you get cancer. But the
mm,
point is not everything is as harmful or necessary. Like using an air fryer might have very necessary things. Like I'll tell you one thing we do, which might sound bizarre to the listeners, right? And if they think we're weird, you're most welcome to, right? But
mm,
if we do order takeout, like like chicken doner and stuff like that, if we do a nice one of those meals, we make our own chips. Like we just get plain chips, like just cut potato, and we air fry them because we don't want two lots of oil, right? So it's just like
that's
nice,
a brilliant. That's a brilliant.
right?
I actually.
And and that just takes. If you think about the whole meal now, it's quite lean compared to oily chips, oily thingy. We want to enjoy our food, but to be honest with you, you can buy chips that
No,
are
I love
plain,
that.
by the way. Like, I think they're called
I
naked
love
chips
that.
or
That's
something.
a fantastic strategy.
But the Turkish guy, right? They start talking. When my wife goes to, she orders, they're like, "God, no chip. Oh, no chips," like this, right? They're baffled. Like, why
Mm,
wouldn't you wanna? Do you see?
mm,
But it's such a
mm,
simple
mm,
process of making air fryer. Like she'll say, just press put some chips in. I'll go and get the thing, or my son will get the thing and we'll make air fryers. And I think a lot of the time what we're not doing is we're not limiting when we're trying to have enjoyable food. We're trying to have all enjoyment in one, karak chai, oily chips, and the chips is being sprayed with 4 different types of rapeseed oil in different colors: a green rapeseed oil, a red rapeseed oil, a white one, all of these Algerian sauce and this sauce, right? And it's all just oil on top of oil on top of oil.
mm,
There's actually not a lot of food going on. All this,
mm,
3 different types of mayo being poured over the food, right, is harmful. So, like, what I think one of the things that I wanted to point out is like especially in Ramadan, those who are breaking their fast with the cigarette, right? I'm not gonna say now, oh, it's haram, because I don't believe that, by the way, right? But
mm,
my thing is something doesn't. I brought it up not to so we're gonna go on this anti-smoking parade. It was because to say something doesn't have to be haram for it to be bad for you. You've been talking about calorie deficits, eating over your calorie deficit. There's no clear hukum that says you can't eat 2,300 calories when you're on a 2,000 maintenance, right? The issue
mm,
is that you need to take a more wider look at your life. Second, third, fourth wife, eating over your calorie deficit, smoking, yeah, maybe dubious financial investments in Habibi coin or something. You need to put
mm,
all of those things and say, Innal halala bayin wal haram bayin. And we need to find wama bainahuma, yeah, and what is between it is these doubtful areas. I think what
mm,
happens is, as Muslims, is we use the halal example when we're not sincere, because we don't actually care that it's halal. We're only saying it's halal because it satisfies wanting to be a fatty boom booms, right? It's basically satisfies the desire to just marry again and again and again. Basically, you just want
mm,
to sleep with people, right? And now you're talking about second wife, and you're talking about the virtues and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with saying that as a human being, people have desires. But the fact is
mm,
that to try and throw the book at someone and using the Islam to justify basically just chasing your desires in a way that either harms yourself, harms your family, your children. You have to
mm,
think of Islam in a more dimensionalized way, is what I'm trying to say, Ustad, right? That's why we're trying to look at this health point, and we don't think it was separate from Islam. It was always part of Islam, but it's become separate because of this secularity. You know, the problem is when you're secular, you start to think, and by the way, that means that when people start looking at health, they start having 2 books in their mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is there another book that you're reading now? Right. The truth is health was never like psychology. I'm speaking to a lot of psychologists recently, and I'm speaking to people who are experts in health and fitness and nutrition and stuff, like such as yourself. But one thing we're establishing is this was never separate from Islam. This was always central to Islam. We, with our own minds, separated it, sometimes through woeful like we did it intentionally, which is something that we would say would more land with ulama. We've been critical about the ulama, right? And just because I'm a graduate and I did my alimiya and I did my iftar and all of these things, I'm not going to be a person who's a part of a tribe. You see, if I say that the ulama have not made these points as clearly as they could be. I also wrote something like this about overweight imams and stuff about 5-10 years ago. I got the biggest flack of my life. I had people just absolutely rinsing me on social media or whatever. So in terms of scholarship, it's more to do with um, there may be narrow-mindedness or misunderstanding. But in
mm,
terms of the laity, we've said al-udhru bil jahl, that is also to do with just ignorance. And I think what needs to happen is people need to be more vocal about that. uh, Look, if most people, they either like Imam Ghazali or they like Ibn Taymiyyah. Have you noticed that, right?
mm,
Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam Ghazali have a common quote that I found in 2 places. You know what they say? They say, only within the preservation of life is worship possible.
mm,
Just let that sink in, that you want to do all this ibadah and taraweeh and everything, but you're knackered. You can't get up, you
mm,
can't move. And a lot of it, like I found the days that I trained, like actual gym training, I woke up
mm,
Fajr easier than the day where I felt like I was pulling my body up like a bag of potatoes, right? I could
mm,
push myself off the bed and I could go and pray. And so fitness does impact your ability to worship. It affects your ability to protect your wife and children. It also affects your ability to carry your children and carry shopping and carry suitcases on holiday, right? It affects all of these things. So In terms of Qiwamāh, I would say that providing and protecting, which are the two major, you would say the two major. So while you're providing and protecting, you have some authority that arches these 2 points, right? But the point is we're never going to be able to provide and protect at the full optimal level if we're not people who are our optimal level of health and fitness, that we're actually people who consider it. And we can mention as many ayat and hadith, but I think you said it well before, that if the motivation isn't there, if your feet isn't to the fire, to keep expecting other people to write motivational memes on Canva and and it's not something that comes from outside. I think what we need to come back to being when we're saying we're Muslims is that our Islam should be coming from the inside and exuding from the outside. But a lot of Islam is now just culture, and I'm sure we've agreed in the past that a lot of it is just culture, a lot of it is just identity based, groupthink. You just want a sense of belonging. Do you see? And it's not. It doesn't relate to the way we view Sahaba. Can I ask you about the supplements and generally what you think about them, and also specifically what you think about them? So generally, are supplements useful?
Not really. Majority of them are not. And there's
Because of the absorption and
the
purity and
absorption and stuff.
concentration.
And you find like vitamins and minerals when you consume them, they come in the packaging of fruit, veg,
Fiber.
and yeah, all the rest of it. When that packaging is missing, they don't have the same effect.
Yes,
The way
I agree.
Allah's created the food, right? They work synergistically. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And then generally speaking, they do a study and they show like 50% gain. And what is like a 50% gain? 50% gain on 1%, right? So it's another 0.5%, and you're paying like £50 a month for this another negligible gain, right? But then the marketing is 50% improvement,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Agreed.
So it's marketed like that. But having said that, there are a couple of supplements that are really effective.
Yeah.
Vitamin D, and I
Tick.
believe now ashwagandha is a pretty
Yeah,
decent one. I believe
that's one of my
yes.
favorites.
A lot of people have had good experiences with Shilajit. I haven't had really. I didn't
I
think it was anything
tried
for
it.
me. It didn't do
Yeah.
anything for me.
Yeah.
creatine, creatine does work, 100%.
Yeah.
Creatine is really good. That should be a staple.
That pretty
Um,
much I have every day.
Protein, I don't consider as a supplement. I consider
Yeah.
it as a convenient form of protein if you need it, if and when you need it.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really like protein shakes, so I don't indulge in them. But if I haven't had protein that day and I want to quickly want 20 grams of protein, then I might have a shake. But otherwise, I'm not really a fan of it. But I don't consider it as a supplement. It's
So creatine you
eh,
do advise.
creatine. I do, yeah.
I have this other one. I
Creatine, I
can't
do.
remember what it's called now. It's some amino acids. Yeah. There's amino acids. There's creatine. There's ashwagandha.
Amino acids don't do anything, bro.
Yeah.
No,
They don't do anything.
protein contains all the amino acids you need. If you're eating a whole source of protein or protein shake,
Yeah.
it's got all the amino acids you need. Amino acids again are just like vitamins and minerals. When you consume them separately, they don't have the
Mm.
same effect. They
Yeah.
have to come in a complete protein. And if you're
Well,
having a
you know
complete
what?
protein,
We've run out of time, but I'll bring up. I've got the dandelion essence and ashwagandha and the lion's mane, and I do too many of these things. So
lion's mane
prebiotics,
is looking
probiotics, and
promising. Yeah, lion's mane is looking promising.
yeah.
Probiotics and prebiotics are debated. One of
I
them
might do it for
is not.
concentration. I don't do it for physical health, but I found that there's been some, net benefit over the years.
Yeah. If you
Um,
find that it's working for you, then
mm.
again,
But
sometimes it's
I
placebo.
wouldn't say just swallowing some pills is the way to forward. I wouldn't advise it at all. I'd say eat good food, and eat nutritious food and so on. Can you leave us with, because iftar is now hit
It's
us.
probably start time for
Um,
you. Yeah,
it's iftar time. I don't know if we've hit it. Let me just go and
I
check.
believe you hit it for you.
Ya Rab, that was 5 minutes ago. So I'm gonna just thank you, my brother, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm so glad that we've done these 3 episodes. I'd love to do more. And I think in terms of Qiwamāh, physical strength, can you just give us an idea of just for physical strength in terms of you said push, pull, and something, and I generally want to take that away and live my life according to. So please tell
Yeah.
me.
Push,
Forget
pull,
the rest of the
squat,
people.
push, pull, squat, hinge, and then something for your core.
Push, pull, squat,
Hinge.
hinge.
Yeah.
And there's a 5th one.
Something for your core. Or you could
Something for
do
the core.
load to carry.
Push, pull. I'm gonna start with after Eid. I'm gonna start with push, pull, squat. Inshallah. Don't know about hinge. I've got to work that one out. Jazakumullahu khair. I really appreciate your advice and your time. And
Yeah.
I really view you as an older brother who can give me advice and everyone else. Because those of you who have seen the Project Baraka video would see this man in the woods leaping across a massive ditch from one end to another. And this is actually Ustad Adam. And with respect, people of your my age aren't making these leaps and bounds, right, without going to hospital. And that shows that's pretty impressive stuff, that someone can, do this. And I advise everybody to tune into your social media handles and to also look at your material and benefit from it. And also not to think, I want to say this to everyone, not to think that this brother, all right, is like having a go at you or he's harsh or he's mean online, because actually he's a sweetheart. Like I say, when you meet him, you're going to realize that. Jazakumullahu khair for your time, for everyone who's watching, and Ustad Adam, Coach Adam. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallahu feek.